None of us are broken. We feel broken at times. We've been taught by broken people that we are inherently broken, but we're not broken. We are here to thrive. And man, it's so challenging in this current construct. Basically, everything is a psyop. Almost everything I thought about women, marriage, family, health, wellness, spirituality, finance, all of this shit is completely backwards. I created the BTFA model, which is belief informs thought, which informs feeling, and then dictates action. Most people want to go right to the A. Even CBT therapy or most talk therapies, traditionally, they approach the A, but I run it in reverse in the blueprint.
When it comes to breaking down a limiting belief that someone has, like, I believe I am unworthy, what would that look like to get to the root of that?
My first question would be, when was the very first time in your life that you can ever remember feeling that way?
Josh Trent, thank you for being here, my man.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So I've given you a shout out before a number of times since I've been in the studio, because the idea for this studio came from you, because I was on your podcast with Aaron Abke, Luke Story. We did this quadcast, and I show up to what I'm thinking might be like some sort of commercial building or, strip mall maybe. I don't know what I'm showing up to. I know it's not your house. When I show up and I'm like, an apartment complex. Okay, this is interesting. Yeah. And then I go in and you've turned, I think it was the dining room space, or maybe it was the living room space.
It was the whole living room.
All of it. Yeah. Like the whole thing was the studio. I mean, that's kind of how this is though too. Like you walk in and everyone who sees it on camera first and then comes in is like, oh, this is way smaller than it looks on camera. It's like, that's the effect of lenses and things like this. And it's just a living room in an apartment. That's all it is.
Well, you're a vibe curator. You just create a good vibe and then, something good comes from it. Who cares where it is?
Yeah.
It could be in a field, could be in an apartment.
Exactly.
It's all good.
Yeah. This is quite cozy because you and I are pretty big guys. And so we're like way closer than the camera would make us appear.
I love that I'm on a couch too.
I know.
Really spread out.
I just added that because I want to be able to have 2 guests at a time. So yeah, it was nice. And I found one that matches this. So if anyone knows how to do this, maybe I'll do a masterclass on how to make your own podcast studio. It's not that hard. Anyway, man. So I actually had you on a previous podcast, which was Health Freedom for Humanity a while back.
During
and that's
lockdown.
how we were acquainted. Yeah.
Yeah.
Stanton introduced us.
That's right. Shout out to Dr. Home.
Yeah, he's the man. He's the man. So if people haven't heard that podcast episode, I think it's still up. Definitely go check it out. I'm sure a lot of your perspectives have changed since then. So, it's like 2021, 2022. But with all that being said, I'd love for you to introduce yourself for those who are unfamiliar with your work.
Yeah. So Josh Trent, I'm the founder of the Wellness and Wisdom podcast. And the whole goal of the podcast is to have people see life through a different lens, the lens of the nourishment of the 5 sides of us, which is mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, and financial nourishment of self. And I find that when we go to nourish these parts of self, what happens is the beliefs and the stories that are running the show unconsciously, they tend to pop up as unconscious evidence as to why we can't nourish these 5 sides of self. I'm also an identity transformation architect. So I have the self-liberation blueprint, which I'm sure we'll get into, and also what is identity transformation, this acceptance of where current self is, the honoring of a lower self, and then the attachment and identification with a higher self. These are all concepts that I'm a student of, but I'm also a teacher of. And my life is living proof, man. 11 years of podcasting, like it's been a wild ride. But that's me in a very tight little nutshell.
What got you into podcasting in the first place, and like self-work, holistic health and all that?
My own pain. Yeah.
Can you share a little bit about that?
My own pain. In 2014, I was in a relationship that I thought I was going to be in for a long time. And that in the span of 6 months, I broke up with a woman I thought I was going to be with. I got fired from a, quote, safe corporate job. And then I was $80,000 in debt, and I put my mom in a mental home. So I'll never forget this, Alec. I had everything in like a old school duffel bag. You know this from your basketball days, like one of those huge duffel bags. And I threw everything in it. And I had my old 2014 Subaru. I rented a room out of my friend's place in La Costa in San Diego for like $200. And I launched my podcast on a rickety ass plastic thing, interviewing Dr. John Gray, just going, God, what is it that you'd want me to do? I don't want to do this. Like, my mom's in a mental home. I thought I was going to be with this woman. I'm in debt. Like, every part of my pentagon was fucked up. I was not nourishing self. I had not had a parental model that actually allowed me to understand what it is to nourish thyself, or even to have the acumen to do so. And so from that moment, I wasn't in suicidal ideation, but I really was like, God, what would you like me to do? What would you actually like me to do? Because if life is this, I don't want to do it anymore. And that's where the podcast was born from. Back in the day, it was called Wellness Force, which I got rid of the word force because I don't like the etymology of the word force. There's a deeper story there. But that's what
As
got
a libertarian, I wholeheartedly agree with that.
Yeah, that's what got me into podcasting was my own pain and my own lack of maturity and my own misalignment with that which I didn't even know. You know, in NLP, they call it the unconscious incompetence. That which one doesn't even know they don't know. And so that's where I was at 34 years old, just really struggling and trying to make sense of life, not having any understanding of the Hermetic system or what I know now. And I look back on that version of myself and I just want to give him a hug and be like, man, you really white knuckled. You really were in hypervigilance. You know, life does not have to be that way. But I think that we all get to go through the eye of our own needle in order to find the treasure. I think that's how it goes.
Amen, man. So I look at you as a pretty well-adjusted, emotionally regulated, holistic, health-oriented, freedom-oriented individual.
I do love freedom.
Yeah, I know you do.
I love freedom.
I know you do.
Yeah.
And I guess this is a pretty open-ended question, and it'll lead right into all the stuff we're going to talk about regarding like beliefs and stories about ourselves and emotional mastery and regulation and addiction and all the things. And I want to ask, like, what was that journey like to have to, when you look back at your previous self, let's put it this way. When you look back at your previous self to where you are now, what are some of the things that you had to break down in terms of your identity that you had formed for yourself? And also, what were the tools and practices you used in order to break down said identities?
The biggest identity that I struggled with for a long time that I can now see the hooks that it had in me was around money being evil. Money is evil. Rich people are bad. Expect the worst to happen, and money causes pain. It's funny how I can just recite those because I did a talk like 6-7 years ago, and I remembered doing an emotional inventory and going, wow, what was the hooks of the old identity? The hooks were deep and strong. I was born to a bipolar mother. And for anybody, I'm sure you've interviewed and talked about this at length as well. For anybody that's born to a mother who's bipolar or a father, a parental caregiver, the lack of neural system nourishment, the lack of peace and homeostasis in the home has a radical impact on how I perceive and am able to respond or react to life.
Were you emotionally enmeshed in many ways?
Definite enmeshment, but also like I became her caregiver early on.
Yeah. Setting aside your own emotions and needs.
It took a long time to unpack the layers of that. But when I look back on to your question, the identity was, I am not someone that makes money because money is evil and I don't want to be evil. That was the biggest one. And the succession of how that unfolded was staying broke for a very long time. But what I found, because I believe that we always experience a cover emotion or a cover story, but the real roots of everything else is something much deeper, much unconscious.
How do you get to that root?
Well, it's a great question, Alec. You must be a podcast.
Because it's like, dude, everyone talks about root cause, right? And
sure,
like,
I can go into
all the time.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, how deep is the actual root cause of any given thing, whether it's physical or metaphysical related to illness, you know?
I believe many times over, more often than not, what I believe is this. The Native Americans have their 7th generation principle. And they state that whether it's Lakota or any tribe, they all inherently have this story that when you choose to behave and act in a certain way, that it ripples back in time 7 generations, and it'll actually ripple forward in 7 generations. So I think like, how do you get down to the unconscious beliefs and start, dismantling them? You first have to take an inventory of, well, what has my lineage taught me that I didn't necessarily consciously ask for, but that's being unconsciously expressed through me, through my body, through my regulation, through my relationships, through my money story, through my disconnection from source. And I think the big piece for me was just getting very clear on what are the ways in which I created my own jail cell. But we don't know it when we're inside of it. It's like that phrase, you can't read the label from inside the jar. Can't read the label if I'm in the jar of pain and prison. And so stemming to your question on identity and finance, I created a belief system that was an amalgamation of my life experiences, being raised by a mom who is bipolar, constantly worrying about money, on welfare. I remember standing in school when I was super young. We'd stand in the free line. And so all the people would know, like, oh, that's the poor kids. And then on top of that, my dad would be gone when he would be in our lives. He left home when I was super young. And when he would be in our lives, he would be working. And so I just created neuroassociations, just heuristics in my brain that was like, well, money is bad. Money is evil. Money's hard to get. Money causes pain. And what's really interesting is that's what was being mirrored back to me, right? The law of correspondence through my parents and the Hermetic system, correspondence was happening where they installed a belief in me that was honestly installed in them. When I look back to my Sicilian heritage, my Sicilian great-great-great-grandparents came over to Ellis Island in New York. And then my grandparents came from that on both sides. So I look at emotional epigenetics as this high level lens of exactly the question that you're asking me. And it is, well, what are the unconscious beliefs? What are the emotional patterns? And what is the environmental expression that I currently hold within my system without me even knowing it, or with me even consciously knowing it, then having the tool set and the skills to unpack the stuff that's there. We get these gifts from our parents, yet we don't consciously ask for them, but they unconsciously run the show. And that's what my life's work is now. Thank God I found it. I was wondering what it was going to be. I was like, it can't be just podcasting. There's got to be something else than just having epic conversations. And so when I see this happening for me and my children, my son, my daughter, my wife, my recent healing that I had with my father, the healing I've had with my mother, like the past year of my life has been the fruit of this work, the fruit of my research. It's been incredible. But I also know there's a lot of work to do for all of us. Just having that high level lens of, well, how did the beliefs get installed in the first place? And then having the tool set to unpack them is the next final frontier. I think it's the final frontier that's being called forth on earth right now, just because knowing and doing are so separate. And the bridge between knowing and doing comes from a lot of different source points and a lot of essences through God, through ourselves.
Dude, I love everything you said there. And I've said this a number of times on this show, is that our words, our actions, our thoughts, and our feelings are predicated overwhelmingly by our conscious and, or if not exclusively, conscious and unconscious beliefs. And I would say that I would even take it a step further. So like that obviously shows why beliefs are such an important thing to unpack. But I would even take it a step further. I would say beliefs, thoughts, and feelings together, I call that thought energy. And when we're perpetually, ruminating and exploring the same beliefs, thoughts, and feelings over and over and over again, just like the correspondence thing you're talking about, you're projecting that into reality and you're co-creating reality based on that.
Wow. I don't know if you already knew that I'm so into what you're saying, but the BTFA loop that I've created, I interviewed this guy named Nir Ayal. He used to work for Twitter and Facebook, and he would figure out how to get people's limbic brain hooked on the novel stimuli from phones. And then I interviewed a few other behavioral scientists like Jed Brewer and people like him. And I was like, what's this really all about? Because at the time I was about 3 years ago, a little over 3 years ago, I was still on the tail end of my journey with pornography. I was still on the tail end of addiction. And I was wanting to know for my own soulful truth, like, what's the truth for me? Fuck what's out there in the world. Like, how do we actually get down to your question? Like, just because we know the beliefs are there, or just because the addiction is there, or just because the neural network of addiction or unconscious harmful things is there, how do we actually dismantle it? It's the how-to that I wanted to get to. And so it took me like 2 years, and I figured out it's exactly what you just said, which is so cool. I didn't know you believed in that. I created the BTFA model, which is belief informs thought, which informs feeling, and then dictates action. And most people want to go right to the A. Even CBT therapy or most talk therapies, traditionally, they approach the A. But I run it in reverse in the blueprint, in the self-liberation blueprint. I actually say, okay, what's the action? What is that connected to the F, the feeling? What thought was created? And then where did the thought come from? BTFA is actually AFTB in reverse. That's how I inherently, we can go into it. That's how I unpeel the layers of, well, why was I addicted in the first place?
Wow.
Where do these beliefs come from? And then that sparked emotional epigenetics, where in multiple medicine ceremonies, I was able to see back in time and see how the unconscious patriarchal poison that my father's grandfathers and great-great-grandfathers were drinking wasn't their fault, because they actually were just there inherently in a timeline that's wide spanning time that we don't even understand. I mean, how far and how long this life really goes. So that's kind of a multi-complex answer, but I love what you're saying about the thoughts being connected, because BTFA is not just some acronym for me. It's literally like practices and worksheets. Before I got to your studio, I was on the phone with my wife. We were just having a little friction. And I was like, okay, babe, I want to unpack the BTFA with you. That's how I speak to my wife, right? So there's a conscious way to do that. And it's not just mental. It's not just top down. Because when we get into the beliefs, there's a lot of stuff that comes up. Like when I shared with you in the beginning about why people create stories as to why they can't nourish the 5 sides of themselves. What happens a lot of times is those beliefs run so deep and they're so painful to look at. Unconscious beliefs are so painful to look at because there's a stuck energy, not trauma, but energy in motion. Emotion is stuck there in the tissues. I don't know if it was on the recording, but we were talking about the afferent messages to the brain from the body is 70 to 80% of the neural traffic in the system. So that tells us that like the body actually does keep the score. And so that's why it feels so painful for us when we go into those belief systems, because our neurology and our unconscious mind feels like it's going to die. And so we must be held when we go through those things in community with support and not feel like we're doing it alone. Because if we try to do it alone, we might feel like we're going to die and we'll never do it. And this is why it's all wretch and no vomit, as Alan Watts says. We just keep raising our children to raise their children, to raise their children in the same way. And nobody ever throws up. Everybody retches, but nobody vomits. So I'm ready to throw this up. I'm ready to do my part so we can all throw up the sickness that we're in here in humanity and planet Earth and actually do something meaningful and loving so that our children don't pay the price for our unconsciousness.
Amen, man. Amen. If you frequently tune into the Way Forward podcast, don't skip this one. This is personal. If you've ever felt a shift from something that you've heard on this podcast, if it's helped you to see things more clearly, if it's helped you to break down a limiting belief system, if it's helped you just to generally question, or if it's helped you to feel less alone, then I'm asking you from my heart to help us keep going. We're not backed by corporate sponsors, venture capital money, or big donors. And that has been a deliberate choice. And we've said no to a lot of ad deals that weren't aligned because we don't want our mission to be shaped by products, brands, and agendas that we don't actually believe in. There are a few trusted brands and products that do support us, and we're incredibly grateful for that. But the reality is, this is primarily sustained by our listeners and viewers. Right now, this podcast has roughly 140,000 video and audio downloads a month, and it's continuing to grow. And only a small fraction of that actually help contribute financially. That's not a guilt trip, it's just the reality. We haven't said this directly enough, so here it is. If you'd like this podcast to continue, please help support us by becoming a member of thewayforward.com. If even a small fraction of listeners and viewers chose to support, we'd be able to easily sustain this. A membership at thewayforward.com is $99 annually, which amounts to about $8 a month. Think of it like a couple organic kombuchas at your local health food store, or maybe a fancy latte every month. And also think of it like this. In addition to ensuring that we can continue, you're actively supporting yourself in the process. TheWayForward.com is a private membership platform that allows you to instantly connect with aligned people, practitioners, farms, schools, restaurants, and more in your local area. And if the platform isn't for you, we've added a donation option as well. You'll find both of those in the show notes. If you've received something from the show, please consider giving back by becoming a member so we can continue to reach people, not just as a podcast, but as a movement for something good, true, and beautiful. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you for walking this path with us. One thing that you said, actually you said 2 things that I want to just ask some like follow-up questions on. The first thing is you brought up how in a medicine ceremony, it was able to help you resolve some of those belief systems that you had come to adopt. Do you think that like plant medicine is a necessity with respect to this? Or do you think it's just that it's helpful for some people in some contexts? Because I've interviewed people that have a variety of opinions on this.
Well, my first job, I was an automotive mechanic, and the right tool for the right job can save you 95% of the time. So it's not inherently that plant medicine is bad or good. I think it's just how it's being wielded, or what's the intentionality behind the tool that's being used. There's a lot of stories of spiritual leaders in Austin and across the world that have all the plant medicines and all the tools, but they still get caught to be frauds or womanizers or things like this. So I don't think that the tool inherently cares what the intention is behind it. The tool just functions as a tool. So the entheogen gets into the body and it opens up access to 4 and 5 and higher dimensions. And then it's up to the soul. It's up to the human being and their intentionality of what they're bringing into the space. So I don't think that, for me, that was the path that I needed to walk. And my time with ayahuasca is complete. I'm totally down to share that story. I think it's a pretty powerful story. But also on top of that, I'll say, like, you don't have to run to a medicine ceremony. Most people can go to a ceremony once or maybe even twice in their whole life and get so much information that is being shown to them through higher realms that they would spend the rest of their life actually integrating those lessons. But what happens is we come back to the 3D, our ego sets in, and then the ego says, well, we just need another ceremony. We just need to go back to another ceremony, and it'll be different this time. I'll never forget this. I was interviewing my buddy, Mark Groves. I don't know if you know him. And
what do I know him?
Create the Love is his brand.
Okay.
And he's like,
I think I follow him on his.
He's like, I went back to ceremony, and ayahuasca was like, I already told you. I already told you what to do. You just haven't done it.
You just won't integrate.
Yeah, it's about the integration. So yeah, for me, it was very paramount. There's probably like 3 solid story arcs with plant medicine, mushrooms, ayahuasca, and ketamine, and also holotropic breath work were very instrumental for me to be able to sit here with you.
You want to talk about them a little
bit? Create what I'm creating now. Yeah.
Let's get into them.
Sure, man. Where do you want to start? I guess we could start in 2016. That was the first time I ever did ayahuasca. And it took me to this place where I realized that I had an ultimate fear of death. I had no conception of what happens after life. And the people in the ceremony were singing these icaros, which is like a song that's been practiced in Peru and where these medicines are created, where they originated from, that'll allow certain neural pathways to be opened through music or through song. And I'll never forget coming out of that. I was like, wow, I'm so sad, but I also feel so liberated. I'm so sad that we die, but I'm also so happy that we get to live. It was like holding both of those worlds. So that was like the ass kicking that I got there. And then in 2018, after doing some breath training with Commander Mark Devine, a guy out of Encinitas, he runs a program called SEALFIT. I learned breath work shortly after. I started doing more breathing practices. And then I got to a place in 2018 where I went down to Costa Rica. And I unfortunately was really in the throes of my addiction with pornography. I was still womanizing a bit at the time. The podcast was still called Wellness Force. So inherently I was still forcing things. I wasn't in integrity with that which I was presenting myself as. And I think if most people do a gut check, we've all felt that. We've all felt like what we're saying is not actually what's here and embodied. And so in that ceremony, I was served a real ass kicking of like shitting out, bubbles of snot, throwing up in a bucket. And ayahuasca kept screaming at me in my ear. And it was like this grandmother that you can't really put words on. There's just an essence or a feeling, like a universal grandmother that could hold us all. And she kept screaming at me like, are you listening? Are you listening? Over and over, to the point where I thought I was going insane. And then finally in the middle of the ceremony in the Maloka, I came up with like puke coming down my face and snot bubbles. And I said, I'm listening, as loud as I could. And I could feel the whole space like, okay, we're all listening too. Thank you for showing us that. And what I wasn't hearing was that by me running away from my deepest pain, which was, remember I talked about earlier, there's a cover story and a cover emotion for all deeper root maladies. The real stuff I was running away from was the sadness and grief about my mom, was the fact that my dad left early, was the fact that I had fear of death, was the fact that I was in grief because I didn't have a relationship with God. I mean, I was very disconnected. Even understanding what emotions were, I didn't have Hawkins in my life yet. I'd really just been dabbling like all of us do in the spiritual worlds, in the emotional worlds, in the health world, truly too. Because before that, I was a personal trainer for 10 years. And so I started with the body, but yet I was still addicted. I was still disconnected. I was chewing tobacco as a personal trainer in 2005, you know? So anyways,
I mean, a lot of personal trainers, at least where I grew up, chew tobacco quite a bit.
Okay.
But yeah, I hear your point.
So then I got to this point where I just accepted that the road ahead, or the way forward, which is, the name of your podcast, right? The way forward was going to be me being honest with Josh and doing whatever work is required for that honesty to feel congruent, so that my body and my biology was no longer an argument to my reality. And that was it. That was the promise that I made to myself. But be careful what promises that we make to ourselves, because God, creator universe, will bring forth unique, dynamic, painful, powerful portals for us to go through. When we declare a promise of sovereignty, when we declare a promise of freedom, when we declare a promise of loving ourselves and learning how to unconditionally love, which is essentially what I think we're here to learn. How can I love you unconditionally, my wife, my children, my audience, Josh? It's not easy. And so we're purging all this toxicity collectively and in the field, and also epigenetically through the emotional epigenetics, what comes through this 7-year span, so that 7 generations forward, they don't have to suffer like I've suffered. They don't have to go through what you've gone through with your mother and father, and the abuse and the neglect and all the insanity that we're all, if we had any soul, we would just look at it and go, well, this is obviously not reality. This is just a reality that's been brought forth and entrained upon us. This is not the actual reality that we can choose that's loving, that's of service to all. This is a reality that's been brought forth by a lot of nefarious beings, a lot of dark energies, a lot of things and energies and people. Call it the dark side of love, because love needs its opposite to experience itself. But still, like, we're in at least this part of the chapter, at least this part of the game, where we're making sense of our suffering, and we're looking at our suffering going, well, we don't need to make meaning of that much of it anymore. There can actually be less suffering. I don't think there's ever going to be no suffering.
No, I don't.
Because I think suffering is inherent.
I think it's inherent to this realm. I think
inherent
it's
to the human condition for us
100%.
to suffer.
Agree.
But what I'm saying in a long tail here is plant medicine is a door. We open up a door. What's behind the door is fucking scary and really brutally honest. And I think that's why we throw up in an ayahuasca ceremony, because what we're finally able to digest is the truth.
Yeah.
The truth of genocide, the truth of mistrust, rape, murder, neglect, emotional sickness, emotional epigenetics, the 7th generation principle that the Native Americans were switched onto, Jung's work, all these people. It's like we're all being nudged in the direction of what does love want and how can love know itself by experiencing its opposite. I think for me, and I can feel for you, like, we're done experiencing the depths of its opposite. We want to counterbalance and bring people back to the center so that, yes, there's going to be undulations which cause suffering and meaning, but there doesn't have to be this massive pendulum swings of war and brutality and murder and craziness anymore. So
I like to look at it like just real quick to add what you said there is I like to look at it as, relatively speaking, because like there's always going to be someone, we could play like the victim Olympics all day. Like there's going to be someone who's had it way worse than me, right? But relatively speaking, and I know you know this, and it's the same with you.
Can I use that phrase, victim Olympics?
Yeah, really, of course you can.
That's so
Please do.
good.
I don't think it's mine. I got it from somewhere else. But it really is like we could play the victim Olympics all day, and I acknowledge that there are people who have had it way worse than I had it growing up. And that being said, relative to most Western people in Western countries, I had a pretty fucked up childhood, and I've been open about that. I haven't given like all the details, but I've been open about a lot of it, right? And that's just because I haven't taken the time to. I do plan on like recording a long episode. It's just like there's so much stuff to unpack with it. Anyway, all that being said is like, I like to look at it as, to your point, I've been through all of that dark stuff, both in my childhood and adolescence. And I want to show people that you can go through very dark, uncomfortable situations and transmute those situations. Try your best to get to the root of those limiting, messed up belief systems that you've adopted through the process about yourself, and come out and be a well-adjusted, emotionally regulated human being. And you can be that example for other people. Like that's what I'd like to do. Am I perfect? No. Am I always emotionally regulated? Absolutely not. Am I always well-adjusted? No. Like, do I have like shadow sides of myself that come out? And sometimes, absolutely. I'm a human being, man. Like, I wouldn't say, if I were to sit here and say the opposite of that, I'm a liar. And not only am I a liar, like you can bet anyone who's like, no, I've done all the healing work. No.
Run from those motherfuckers.
Run, dude. Yeah. Run from them.
Run.
Exactly.
Wow. Can I touch on something you said?
Yeah, please.
Yo,
please do.
When you said well-adjusted, you know what I thought of? That phrase from J. Krishnamurti, where he said, it's no measure of good health to be well-adjusted to a profoundly sick society.
Yeah.
And that is like the most powerful encapsulation of probably everything we've talked about so far. That quote hits me in the heart so much so that I put it in my presentations. It's like a slide in my presentations because, when I feel into that quote, it's like who cares if we have all the biohacking tools, if we have a six pack, if we have 6-7 figures in the bank? Who gives a flying fuck unless every child is clothed and fed in the world? Like, who actually cares? Does it matter that you're tatted from teeth to toe and you have 6 Rolexes and 5 Bentleys and you're flexing on IG? What a sickness we're in. What a fucking sickness we're in as a collective right now. And it doesn't, but the thing is, it doesn't have to be that way. It's just their timeline. It's a certain timeline that's expressing itself. You and I are on a different timeline. We're on a timeline that's bringing people to a place where they can feel sovereign in the way that they live their life and move forward in their life, to where they can trust themselves and learn the skill sets and tools and ways of being that allow for peace in the fucking storm. That phrase that I've heard isn't just some soliloquy or shortcut that gets posted on social media. Like, you know, the destination is like not the important part, it's the journey. And, you know, can you dance in the rain and dance in the storm? All these things that are platitudes, they get posted to kind of take away their weight. It's like that story, the emperor's not wearing any clothes and the child calls it out. I'm calling myself out. I'm calling all of us out to say, here on planet Earth, we're in this really interesting false dichotomy right now, where there's people that have control and power, like technocrats, which is an expression of emotional epigenetics, I believe. And then there's the rest of us that are just having great hearts and want to love, and we're here to learn how to unconditionally love. We're just in a different timeline. We're in a different timeline where we're wanting to really learn from each other and wanting to really grow, but we have to work so hard to make ends meet. And we have to put so many hours of the day into satisfying rent, obligations, finance, etc., that the name of the game, I believe, and I'm curious how you feel, the name of the game is not working harder and hustling. It's about being aligned and having wisdom. Because when you're aligned and you have wisdom, like I said when I was a mechanic, if I had the right tool, I could save 95% of the time. When I'm aligned and I have wisdom, then I don't have to effort so much. I don't have to be in hypervigilance. I don't have to be a fucking asshole to be around and force people to do what it is I need them to do so that, quote, I can feel safe. I come to people with safety. I come to people with regulation. And then the end result is that ripples out like water in a pond. So I don't know how we're going to get there, honestly. I'm just doing the best that I can with the level of consciousness and skills and relationships and network that I have to make it happen. But I honestly don't know. And it makes me sad. I'm like, how are we going to do it?
Yeah.
How are we actually going to do this?
By taking 100% responsibility for our own experience, like individually. Like that's all we really can do. Of course, like we both have our own podcast. We give people information. We let people like venture into our mind and explore all the topics that we want to explore ourselves, right? And that's really cool. But at the end of the day, it requires that people take 100% responsibility for their own life experiences, for their beliefs, thoughts, feelings, words, and actions. And at the same time, that's not like a shame-based sentiment. It doesn't require that you shame yourself like, oh, I haven't done that. It's okay. Once you get to some of these like limiting beliefs to the root of them, it's having forgiveness for yourself. It's having compassion for yourself. It's like all those things, taking 100% responsibility and accountability for your own life, and also having like a deep sense of compassion and forgiveness for yourself and others at the same time. And like, boy, that sounds like it's super simple, but it is easier said than done.
Yo, we can bring forth models of change that may be inherently simple.
Yeah.
But they're the law, like mentalism and hermetics, right? All is mind. The universe is mental. Just because it's mental, AKA just because it's easy, does not mean it's going to be some easy thing to execute. So a better way to say it is just because it's simple to understand does not mean it's going to be easy to execute.
100%.
For sure. Otherwise, the self-help industry wouldn't fucking exist.
100%.
There's been enough books at this point that have written about how to, help thyself.
Yeah, so true, man. So true. So on taking 100% responsibility, I want to talk a little bit more specifically about getting to like a root belief system and how you go about that with your BTFA practice.
It's so cool. It's aligned with yours. I didn't even know you felt that way.
Yeah, man. Like it's a big thing on what I talk about, just as a quick aside when it comes to, I tend to talk about it more at a collective level, although I can bring it to the individual level. Like I do one-on-one health mentorship and I like talk about it there as well. But what I talk about it through the lens of primarily just to speak to a larger, like what the agendas going on is that, okay, it's important to be aware of what's going on in the world because you need to be aware of what others are co-creating, either wittingly or unwittingly. But there are countless examples where a collective of people, for better and for worse, focus on something and actually have measurable results of that thing in reality, like mass psychogenic illness, mass social contagion. And then on the flip side of that, the Maharishi effect. So when we're talking about our beliefs, thoughts, and feelings informing our words and actions, I think most people can get that at this point, like whether you're metaphysically, spiritually leaning or not. But what a lot of people miss is that the beliefs, thoughts, and feelings are themselves causal vectors as well. That is what I'm getting at with people. And it's like, so whether it's the mainstream media or the mainstream alternative media, a term coined by David Icke, is trying to get you outraged and focused on one specific thing.
Yeah.
You need to be very mindful of that, because just by giving it thought energy, belief, thought, and feeling oriented towards it perpetually, you're actually feeding the conditions that create more of that in reality. So that's kind of the lens through which I look at it, but it's the same applied to an individual's life in their own direct experience too. So,
ooh, it's so good. Our lens is pretty similar. Like they overlap really well. And the way that I see it and what's helped me the most is this understanding that the BTFA is not just a conscious belief, because conscious beliefs are easy, right? Well, I believe that Nikes or Jordans are the best shoes. Well, why do you believe that? Well, I just, they look the best and they function cool. And plus I really like Jordan. And if you go 5 questions deep on people's beliefs, it'll eventually get to some kind of basal human connection point. This is what I believe for beliefs. Like the T and the F and the A are different, but for beliefs, it's usually an event where energy was stuck, AKA trauma. I don't like using the word trauma because I think that word is overused. And I actually think it's kind of a spell to use the word trauma. So I just use stuck emotion. And by the way, emotion, as you know, but I'll share, it's just energy in motion. So emotion, whether it's fear, grief, anger, sadness, disgust, love, joy, the core emotions, they are inherently just, like you had said, vectors or vessels of energy transmuting through the body, through the biofield, through the collective, through the ether. It's all the same. It's all one and the same. And so back to the B, if you go 5 layers deep with someone, and the best coaches in the world do this. I don't know if you've ever seen like a Tony Robbins coach somebody. He just takes them 5 deep. It's like, it's pretty predictable at this point. You just take somebody 5 layers deep, and eventually the core constraints or the shared core issue is, I believe this will keep me safe, or I believe this will make me feel loved, or I believe this will create belonging for me, or I believe that this will give me some kind of utility or purpose. And if you get people to those spaces, those are all really great for life force energy and for felt sense of security. But what's challenging is that in life, nothing is secure. There is no such thing as safety. And the part for me that started to uncrack and open up in 2016 in that ayahuasca ceremony was that there is no such thing as safety. Safety doesn't exist. Safety only exists when I relax my neural system into being safe with the also subsequent awareness that I may not be safe. That's what inherently is a paradox.
It's almost like acceptance.
Yeah, it's a paradox of like, I could leave your studio and knock on wood, this isn't going to happen, right? But I get in a car accident, or you could perish, I could perish. It happens all the time for people in the world. So we're such fallible creatures. We're such like children, we're just like children of God here, just figuring it out. And we don't have a firm grasp from an egoic sense that we're always going to be safe. And I think that's why we're always clutching for it. I think that's why the individual and collective ego loves to clutch for safety, is because we're all inherently afraid of dying, because we don't know what happens.
Well, that's why the powers that shouldn't be, or the technocratic like statist class constantly uses things under the guise of safety and security.
Right, that's right. Even in George Orwell's 1984, right? This is for your security. This is for your safety. It's like, we're seeing it play out now in so many different ways. So back to the B, if you really understand what the belief is, what is a belief? A belief is an imprint that's based on a time-coded memory of energy that is stuck or energy that is stored. That's what a belief really is.
Say that one more time.
It's a time code, right?
Code?
So you and I are an amalgam.
I really want to get this. So yeah.
I've actually never said that quite like that before either.
Okay.
So it's a testament to the vibe space you hold. So like, think of the time code. Like right now, we're just coding each other. If there's matrix around us, and and if we are in a matrix or not, I don't really care. We're here now. So we're in a time, we're time coding with each other. And in this time code, you and I are creating a belief, which is a felt sense of energy that's being encoded or imprinted.
Okay.
Right. And that encoding or that imprinting stores a memory that the unconscious mind will access at future dates.
Okay. So it's almost like a feeling related to a specific event, time coded.
Yeah, think of it like...
is a good way to put it,
So
right?
there's this beautiful studio you have, right? And the cameras are recording us, right? The cameras have, I think it's called the S-log or some kind of way that it records us.
Yeah.
So if we were a camera, right now, our unconscious mind is recording everything.
Yep.
Right? In NLP, it states that we only actually take in about 150 to 200 bits of information per second. Yet we're thrown either millions or tens of millions of bits of information per second. The data isn't super clear on that, but just basically say it's like a 1 to a lot, right? There's so much that's being thrown at us that's actually not being stored, but it's still being seen. It's all being time coded, yet we're only getting about 150 to 200 bits of information per second. So what I'm saying is, like, you and I are here, we're encoding these impressions or this storage, and we're just creating meaning from it. That's what a belief is. We're creating a belief that is a time code that's impressed or indented or stored. And then you and I create a meaning from this. Like when I leave, I'll be like, wow, got to know Alec in a really cool way today. What a great way to get to know somebody. That was super fun. I hope we have more times like that. And then that would facilitate my future actions because I have a belief. That belief is that our shared time is valuable and this conversation is worthy of sharing. And this conversation is something inherently meaningful to people that are here witnessing and being in it with us. And then that creates the thought, oh, well, wow, like how can we create more of this? Or wow, this thought is like, oh, this feels so good, right? And then it makes me feel, it informs the feeling. Then I start feeling joy, or I start feeling connection, or I start feeling some kind of curiosity, whatever it is. And then that dictates my action, which is me sharing with you what I think is cool, what I think is interesting and meaningful, and then you doing the same. So the B is everything. And the fact that we are not focused, starting with the B, then to the T, then to the F, and only as a society, we're focused on just the A, it's so ass backwards, but it doesn't surprise me. Because whether it's flat earth that I haven't totally grokked yet from you, or it's I
don't know if I am, by the way, everyone. Okay. Like I know that what they claim, there's multiple ways to falsify it. Other than that, I don't know.
But what I'm saying is like, basically everything is a fucking psyop. Almost everything. I'm sorry, because that doesn't leave room for mystery. But like almost everything's a psyop. Almost everything I thought about women, marriage, family, health, wellness, spirituality, finance, mental health, emotional well-being. All of this shit is completely backwards to which I was educated on. Like our buddy in our men's group, Cal, has his podcast, The Great Unlearn. So it's like, how do we unlearn what we learned, right? I love that because damn, we have all been imprinted. Remember that time code? We've been imprinted in academia for fucking decades. By the time we come out of academia, we are ready to purge. Oh my God. And if we're not ready to purge, then we're just going to be one of these people that keeps retching. And then we're just going to feed that to everyone else. So I don't even know where we are in the conversation.
Dude, one thing that comes up for me that is so trippy to consider when it comes to any, like the belief that you talked about that we're forming right here.
Yes. That's right. We're talking about BTFA.
Yeah, it is colored by a variety of other beliefs underpinning that one has in their life experience up to this moment. And like, that's the trippy thing. So like when it comes to, for example, breaking down a limiting belief that someone has, maybe it'd be helpful to like walk through an example if you could. Yeah. Would you mind? Like, okay. Let me think of one. I don't know, like a belief in unworthiness. I think a lot of people have that, right? Like I believe I am unworthy.
That's a standard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what would that look like to get to the root of that?
So if I was working with someone right here, my first question would be, all right, take a big deep breath, fill your nose, let your belly rise, exhale through your mouth, audible sound. And I would do that. I would have them do 10 clearing breaths. Because a lot of times, man, when you ask somebody like, hey, if you were to just ask somebody, hey, why do you have that belief? Boom. All they would do is just go right into their head because their body's afraid of what they're going to feel. So that's the first thing. So get somebody to do circular breathing. So I feel like circular breathing is the easiest because it really creates a rhythm. Box breathing is good too, but I found like I've been teaching and facilitating breathwork since 2016, and I launched the Breathe Breath and Wellness program in 2021, and then we had like 1,000 students that signed up for the program. And I also do it with my Liberated Life tribe. And so that's what I'll do is I'll get somebody in their body first so they can feel what's going on. And then when they're feeling it, I'll slow my pace down and I will just ask a question like, when was the very first time in your life that you can ever remember feeling that way? Just trust your unconscious mind. And they'll usually say something. And then they'll say something again. And then it'll go way back to probably 0 through 7 or 7 through 14 or 14 through 21. Those 7-year cycles, if you look at the cellular turnover or the Saturn return, is essentially like every 7 years our cells turn over. So every 7 years we have these time encodings that create these beliefs that inform our action through the BTFA. And so the second question I would say, great, is it okay if we explore that in your body? And if they say no, then that's it. Then I would just be like, great, here's a recording. You want to practice breathwork on your own. But if they let me, then I would say, okay, well, close your eyes, put your hand on your heart and your belly. And where does that live? Continue to breathe with me. So we would continue breathing. Where does it live in your body? If they don't know what that is, I would just be like, great, what color, what shape is it? And where might it be? This feeling of sadness, this feeling of unworthiness. Just trust yourself. Just keep saying the word trust. It's not me manipulating or persuading someone to do something. It's more me just being in compassion, which compassion is meaning you're an empathetic witness. I don't have an agenda to be a perfect coach. My whole job is just to keep my heart open and just be with the person and just hear what they have to say. And eventually they'll say it's black, it's red, it's whatever it is. And all that is doesn't really matter to me. It just matters to them because it makes their pain and their unworthiness feel real for them so they can sense it in their body. And then I would say, great, if you were to feel this, what does it feel like? And then they would describe the feeling. Great. Can we breathe into where the feeling is? Okay, now that you've breathed into where the feeling is, what do you believe? If you were to guess and just have fun with this, I like to use the word thought experiment. Hey, now that you're in your body, can we do a fun thought experiment? Because really it's inherent of parts work, right? Parts work is a different conversation. I'm not a certified parts work therapist, nor am I a therapist. I'm just a guide. So that takes the legalese off of me.
Yep.
But inherently what I'm doing is a version of parts work where I already know it's their exile. I already know their exile is being protected by a firefighter. And that firefighter is going to do everything it can so that the exile doesn't have to feel the sadness, feel the grief, feel the shame. I'll make it personal, right? Like one process for me, if you were coaching me and you asked me that question 5 years ago, I would have gone to this moment where I watched my mom get carried out of the house when I was like 11 years old in a stretcher because she had a manic episode. And at the time, my grandparents were there and I could tell they were lying to me. They were saying, oh, your mom's okay. So I was feeling anger. So if I was working with somebody, I would say, I'm feeling anger. And then I would say, is mom okay? I would be feeling fear. Anger and fear are the two, I believe, most powerful emotions. Shame is probably actually the most poisonous state we can
easily
do. Shame is the lowest. It's at 25 on the Hawkins scale. It's the lowest factor of vibration. But fear and anger are right close to that because when someone's stuck or when that child is stuck in fear and anger, there's a time code, there's an imprint, and it gets locked in. And whether I want to deal with that or not, it's going to run the show. That's why Jung says, until you make the unconscious conscious, it'll run your life and you'll call it fate. That's why Jung was switched on to what I'm describing, because we all feel things, yet the things that are not said are still felt. They're still felt in the space. They're still felt in the room. So then I would walk somebody through, okay, great. If your higher self, thought experiment, if your higher self, you know, the version of you that's free of this, the version of you that is in joy, if they're really having a hard time, I would just snap them out of it. And I would say something like, who do you love or what do you love most in your life right now and why? Just get them in that state. And then go, great. If you are operating from that state and your highest self, your most developed self, your most loving self, your most accepted self, what would be the wisdom you would share with this current version of you that is the gift of this pain you're feeling or is the truth of this pain you're feeling? And typically it's something like this. Wow, I had to go through this so I know what it feels like so I don't give it to my kids. Or wow, I had to go through this so I know what it feels like so that I can speak about it publicly and share and help others not fall into that trap. Not because I'm here to save them, but just because it is what it is. Or something will be like, you know, I really feel like I miss my mom, or I really feel like I miss my dad. Like there's usually a emotional vacuum. That's why one of the Greek philosophers, his name was Aristotle. He said, nature abhors a vacuum. So like potassium, sodium in the body and high, low pressure for water. So on a metaphysical and a scientific level, nature abhors a vacuum. What does that mean? It means that if there's an emotional charge that's wanting to escape. High pressure eventually has to seek low pressure. Chaos cannot emit in perpetuity. It eventually has to find some kind of order. So that's how I would guide somebody through that. And depending on where they are, I would obviously continue the breathing. The breathing part is the most important piece, actually. Because what I find in traditional talk therapy is they'll have people close their eyes, but they're not really skilled in breath work. And they don't know how to look at someone and really see, like they don't know when somebody's shoulders are up, or they don't know when somebody's face is tense, or they might not know that somebody's a reverse breather. Like some people, when they inhale, their belly will go in. And when you inhale, your belly is inherently supposed to, that's how God designed us, that when we take a big breath, our belly fills up, right? So I would walk people through that process. And then essentially they would be able to look at where that belief was installed. But here's the most important thing, dude. It took me a long time to learn this. Oh my God. I just got chills talking to you about this. It's not knowing why something happened. That's not the important piece. It's only powerful if you just know what happened. That's it. If you try to figure out why it happened and you start to, well, it was my dad and it was connected to him and blah, blah. Just be in the acceptance and be a soldier for truth that it happened. Just name it. And once you name it, then you can start to disassociate from it. Then you can actually start to be grateful for it. Holy shit. When I went through my BTFA process for pornography, dude, I was grateful that I was a porn addict.
Wow.
I was grateful because if it wasn't porn, it might have been cocaine. It might have been something very serious that was trying to feed my hungry ghost. So that would be, obviously it's like, this isn't psychological advice, but that would be how I would work with somebody to take them through that process. And I would say, great, now let's do a future visioning exercise so that, and this is what I do in the blueprint. We take people through an AI assisted that I train. So it's actually like made for them instead of just some cookie cutter GPT that's like fed with a bunch of normie bullshit. Like CBT bullshit.
Yes.
So that's what I do in the blueprint. And so, yeah, then we would future vision from this new state. Because the way I believe it is like, whether my eyes are open or whether my eyes are closed, whatever reality I believe to be true is going to be reflected at some point. If I close my eyes and I do a visioning exercise, or if we ever did a journey together, or if like you ever connect with people in a super deep way, that actually is reality. That is reality. We're just here in this reality with our obstructions and constraints and stories and beliefs and emotional patterns that get to just be understood, so we can just go, okay, they happened. That's the whole kind of what I do, dude, is I just help people feel feelings and be honest about what has happened. Mm-hmm. That's like pretty simplistically what I do.
For generations, our ancestors lived in harmony with nature, thriving on a nose-to-tail approach to nourishment. Organ meats, often called nature's multivitamin, were a staple, providing essential nutrients that supported energy, brain function, skin, gut health, and reproductive vitality. Yet today, these deeply nourishing foods are largely missing from modern diets, leaving many of us unknowingly depleted. Let's be real though, most of us aren't eating organ meats the way our ancestors did. Whether it's the taste, texture, or simply a shift away from traditional foods, we've lost touch with this vital source of nourishment. And that's where Paleo Valley's grass-fed organ complex comes in. It's an easy way to reconnect with ancestral wisdom and replenish the nutrients we're meant to thrive on. Sourced from grass-fed cows on small regenerative farms in the US, this blend includes liver, heart, and kidney, freeze-dried to preserve their full nutritional integrity. No fillers, no synthetic processing, just pure, bioavailable nourishment. Those who incorporate the grass-fed organ complex notice more energy, balanced moods, and renewed vitality, sometimes within days. If this speaks to you, you can explore more by visiting the show notes or heading to paleovalley.com/thewayforward. And in this case, forward is fully spelled out. So paleovalley.com/theway, FORWARD. And a 15% discount will be automatically applied at checkout. That's good, man. I mean, I think like most people have so much fear surrounding being like totally honest with themselves.
Because it's brutal.
Yeah.
It's brutal, to be honest.
Well, it's also because like, especially when you adopt the perspective that you and I share regarding like taking 100% accountability and responsibility for your own life, is that yes, at some point in pretty much anyone's experience, you have been victimized, right? And whether you believe that you attracted that experience or not, like that, we could, speculate on that all day. I personally tend to believe that like, no, I programmed some intentional experiences into my life prior to this life. Yeah. I can't prove that, but that's the gut feeling that I get. And it just gives even more responsibility to myself. Like, no, I chose this experience. In either case, on the back end of that experience, by perpetually blaming someone else for that experience, you're only perpetuating your own suffering in that process. So when we take 100% accountability and responsibility, it can be freaking scary, dude. Like, because you have no one else to blame anymore. You literally cannot blame anyone else anymore.
I believe that the far majority of financial poverty in the world is done by what's called the, I don't know if you've talked about this on the show, but it's the drama triangle. Have you heard about this?
Yeah, the perpetrator, victim, rescuer.
Exactly. Yeah. So the perpetrator exists to victimize the victim, and then the savior exists to save the victim.
Yeah.
And to like do movies against the perpetrator. But it's all just an inherently toxic, sick little game.
It's also what politicians use, by the way, on both sides.
No doubt.
Yeah.
The drama triangle is essentially politics.
It literally is. It literally is politics.
Like, dude, they should just, yeah. So,
it is. It literally is politics.
But yeah, I think that, and I got to give credit where credit is due. Like Kylie Ryan is a really powerful woman. And she created her own version of the drama triangle. The drama triangle, I believe, was made by a therapist. His last name was Karp in the 60s. And she put her own methodology on it where she actually would teach people how to do its opposite. So if you're not a victim, then what are you? You're a hero, right? If you're not a perpetrator, then you're someone that is doing good in the world, but without having to have return, right? Et cetera, et cetera. I don't know her model perfectly, but I want to give her credit for that. Anyways, the drama triangle exists to further perpetuate victimhood because victimhood is fucking monetizable in a way that the ivory towers lick their chops on every day. Instagram, Facebook, the American Medical Association, anything involving cancer, any part of traditional systems that develop the problem and the solution for the problem, especially the pharmaceutical industry, they are all actually the perpetrator, and they're trying to tell us that we're the victim. That's really it. So it brings up kind of in a way for what you and I are doing, which is like being a hero, but not because we have to save them and not falling into just the hero archetype, but actually just saying, okay, well, I'm going to be a hero of my life first. Because actually I sense that I need fucking saving because I do, because I didn't even know that I didn't know I was a victim. And at times I didn't even know I was trained to be a perpetrator, but at least now I can acknowledge where I am and be honest where I am. When we remove the drama triangle, all there is truth. All there is love, and all there is reality. But to remove the drama triangle means no more football stadiums with 100,000 people watching football on a weekend. No more college kids getting drunk and raping and hurting each other. No more fucking corporate America cubicles existing anymore for people that sell themselves out because they don't think they're worthy of something better that their heart is calling them towards. No more parents that are oblivious to their own degradation of self and unconscious beliefs that they share with their children. None of this shit could exist anymore if the drama triangle was removed. So we're all inherently participating in the drama triangle and we don't even know it. And that's a big part of, I think, why it's so important to just be like, it doesn't matter why something has happened. We're all waking up. Like, it only matters that it happened. Let's just be honest with with the what instead of the why, because why is too sticky. And why makes people commit suicide. I think when people ask why too much, I think it drives them to insanity, and it drives them to depression, and it drives them to a very unhealthy space mentally. So my heart goes out for anybody that's stuck in the why, because I've definitely been stuck in the why before in my life.
I have another question related to, well, we're going to talk about emotions a lot during this, related to like traditional talk therapy versus a lot of these alternative approaches. And I'm going to try to contextualize this as best I can. So in a lot of talk therapy experiences that I have had personally, it has been very cerebral, meaning that you're just like psychologically trying to approach beliefs, thoughts, feelings, unhealthy patterns that you have and not feeling them, which I don't think is helpful. Then on the flip side of that, in the wellness space, if you want to call it that, there is the approach where you almost feel like, whether it's directly spoken or not, you have to perpetually feel, to where it almost feels like you're just continuing to rip off the scab and not allowing yourself to heal. So like, in your experience, with working with people and also like working on yourself, what is the appropriate balance when it comes to healing these patterns and the quote unquote trauma that we've experienced on, very, not to like say that Alan Watts is bad or anything like that, but very Alan Watts-esque, where it's like, oh, it's all just about like a flip in belief, right? And I feel like it doesn't leave room for like needing to feel that, right? And then on the flip side of that, just perpetually diving deep into your feelings and like, oh, I'm always in a healing process. You know what I mean?
I do.
Yeah. I hope I articulated that well.
Perfect.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, again, I love this phrase because I've seen how I've unconsciously lived this phrase, and it is a false dichotomy. Anytime I'm only presented with two choices for any issue or constraint or problem, it's a false dichotomy. Like there's always more than two ways to get up a mountain or to get out of pain. Always. There's probably ways in which are infinite, and I just don't even know that I don't know them yet. So you're saying on one camp, there's the somatic experiencing people, or the trauma-informed crowd, where they're all about the somatic and they're all about
constantly
feeling. Well, if we're only focused on one side of a lens, then you're always carrying a hammer and everything looks like a nail. Then everything you approach is like, oh, well, you just need to feel more.
Yeah.
Well, what about if the rent is due and your children are screaming and your wife is having a hormonal shift because of her cycle? You gonna feel it all then?
No, hell no.
Or are you actually going to, right, it's not appropriate. So what I've learned for that camp as to where they fall short is there's a timing, there's an articulation, and there's a sensory perception that all must be present in order for there to be the spaciousness or even the responsibility to know, is it the right time to go into the depth of my feelings right now? We can't just feel all the time. Then we just be like, that's why the ocean has a shoreline. If we were all in our water all the time in our feminine and we were never contained, then we would just evaporate.
Yeah,
right?
Noah's Ark, hopefully.
Yeah. So that's what I would say to that camp. And now, however, where trauma-informed and somatics really shines, I went through Fish and Steven Jager's breathwork training just because I wanted to re-up my training. And I was like, wow, it's so nice to just be in a room and feel for a whole weekend. So like having these big doses of feeling to clear out emotional congestion is super healthy. Yeah, really good.
100%.
That's why people go to ceremonies as well. So now, would you want to feel that deeply at all times? No, it's not conducive nor appropriate to modernity, to 3D living.
To life, period. To life. Dude. Like, I mean, I would even say like not even modernity, like in indigenous cultures, they weren't having to constantly feel all the time.
You're going to go into HEB with the cashier and be like, what's going on for you right now?
What's the life
She'd
for
be
you
like,
right
what
now,
are you
brother?
talking about? I'm at work.
Yeah.
So that's one camp. And then what was the other camp you talked about? The more mental camp? Or how did you frame it?
Camp. Like Alan Watts is a bad example. I love Alan Watts. Like I would say the more David Goggins camp, maybe. Like I'm talking about like the extreme here. Or even not David Goggins. Like let's say, take for example, and I love Joe Dispenza, but some people, I'll say, misappropriate and misunderstand what he's saying. Because he's not saying not to feel. But I see where there are some people in the space where, even like using Byron Katie's The Work, for example, like it can become just a very cerebral, just change beliefs without feeling the underlying feelings associated with said beliefs. Do you see what I'm saying there?
I do. Yeah. And I want to just like...
And I love The Work by Byron Katie, by the way. I think it's an incredible tool.
Yeah, it really is. And in some ways, it's funny. Somebody literally, it's so funny you mentioned that. Today, someone commented on, I have a video I just put out on self-sabotage. And it's doing well. And someone was like, wow, this reminds me of Byron Katie's work. Because I talked about the BTFA. I didn't even realize it, but all the different, just like in your life, all the different teachers you've ever learned from, or in your like multiple hundreds of guests, my podcast, your podcast is our collegiate level curriculum.
Yeah.
It's collegiate level, master's level curriculum for mind, body, soul, spirit, everything, finance too. And so I think that the mental crowd is great because in the Hermetics, the law of mentalism states that all is mind, or the universe is mind. But then the law of correspondence states that we are being reflected back what is inherently in us. That's why it's said as above, so below, right? Or whatever I'm internally experiencing, you're going to feel that and you're going to reflect that back to me. And so you can't just have one part of a system. That's why interdisciplinary systems, or even if you look at Ken Wilber's work, or if you look at Paul Chek's work, just look at anybody's work. Their work is very
multidisciplinary
and connective. right? So to say that there's only one tool for one thing is inherently a false premise. It's this presupposition where I say, well, emotional healing or even emotional epigenetics is not just a mental tool. Just because I know that environment, unconscious beliefs, and our emotional patterns run the show, and just because I know that they happened, does not mean it's going to be all of a sudden easy for me to apply BTFA and things that people learn in the blueprint. It's like, it's a process. Now, at least you have a map, at least you have a guide, but it's not just this one mental lens where we look down and go, okay, as long as I have this one tool, then my whole life's going to be perfect. It's more like, okay, somatic crew or intellectual crew, or even now, whatever happening with David Goggins' crew, which is inherently just forcefulness. I feel like the David Goggins and even the Andy Frisella is like inherently good, but it's only good at one stage of maturation.
Totally.
If you're a drug addict and lazy and 100 pounds overweight and you don't have a job, I would say listen to Andy Frisella.
Totally agree with that, man. Like they are useful in the appropriate context, right?
Yeah. And so is somatic, so is intellectual, and so is that forcefulness.
Yeah.
They all have their own timing,
yep.
which is so paradoxically good because we were talking about the fact that we have to have timing and attunement and the appropriateness of when we share and how we share in public. Yep. It's the same thing for all these tools.
I love that answer though, right? It's because it's like it's contextually dependent. It's like it's 100% not a one size fits all sort of situation. I will say that there's something about the like I need to feel all the time crowd that has some undertones of victimhood-y. And on the flip side of that, the very mentalism, like just fucking man up crowd is very bypassing your emotions. So it's like we need a combination of both of those. And like what I say personally, man, is that, for example, if someone's struggling with like chronic anxiety, chronic depression or something like that, I like to think, because I've experienced those things myself before, that the reason I'm feeling this sort of underlying anxiety at all times or underlying depression at all times is because there is an emotion that I am too scared to feel related to that exact thing that is keeping it just low level at all times. So the people that experience chronic depression, chronic anxiety, I can only speak to my own experience, are actually not allowing themselves to really feel the emotion associated with that thing. That's what I think. And so like my whole shtick is whatever it is that you use, and there's a lot of different tools, EMDR, emotional freedom technique, your process, Byron Katie's the work, like a lot of Wayne Dyer's stuff. There's so many different approaches you can take with this. Is you just need to feel a feeling as long as it's meant to be felt. And then it comes a point when you need to step out of it. That's it.
Ooh. Yo, I was just feeling, what a great way. I was literally encoding through time. I was like, what a great way to get to know somebody on a podcast. Like the podcasting is like 3 years of friendship in 90 minutes or two. I've always felt like that. You really get to know somebody. I like the way you think, because I think that many times in my life when I have the whole thing with porn is exactly what you're talking about. And it's like that. It was like that for me. And it's like that for most men and women. Some women struggle with porn too. It's not about the orgasm or the screen. It's about the distortion and the distraction. The distortion and the distraction feeds the cover story or the cover emotion to block somebody from going into the more dense scale. Like in the Hawkins scale, I think it's 25 to 175. 25 to 175. And then you hit pride. And then above pride is acceptance. But what keeps you locked into these lower, denser states with less frequency is shame and feeling shame. And feeling shame and allowing yourself to feel shame. That's the big one. I wasn't allowing myself to feel the shame of what I was watching because I wasn't allowing myself to process my sadness and grief about the stuff that I had shared with you as well.
So you look to porn as an escape from feeling sadness and grief.
Dude, yes. Pornography, overworking, shopping, social media, all these things are essentially hooks. And they're hooks that, I can't believe I'm going to say this, they're essentially like a guardian of our own growth. If we can become unhookable and the hooks try to get in, the hooks are still going to exist, right? But they just don't get to hook into us anymore because we've become sovereign and we have an identity now. We've gone through an identity transformation process, much like the caterpillar goes into the chrysalis and then it liquefies and it becomes a butterfly. We're all wanting that. That's why we're here, dude. We're here to remember who we are. I know that phrase gets thrown around a lot in spiritual circles, but fuck, I mean it. Like we are here to remember who we are. And when we remember who we really are, and we go on the hero's journey to go into that chrysalis and allow ourselves to be liquefied and purified and galvanized, it's fucking hard, because then one gets to take ownership and emotional inventory for that which they have created. And when they admit and be in truth about that which they've created, there's an incredible amount of feeling that gets to occur in order for those energies in motion to be cleared. And then once they're cleared, we can be fucking free. I'm sitting here with you at the level of freedom that people can feel because I've done this work. And by the way, I'm still not totally free. I still have more freedom to achieve. Actually, not even to achieve, to actualize, to feel, to embody.
Yeah.
And so I was on such a good tirade there. I don't even remember what you asked. It was something like this of what is the meaning that we're making out of all this? And where are we in this time-space reality? And what exactly is you and I, our life force, here to do? I truly wholeheartedly believe it's to remember who we are.
Amen.
And I didn't know that for a while. I think everything that I'm teaching and that I'm learning, I'm actually learning back again. I'm unlearning in reverse, because almost everything has been taught to me backwards. All of it. Even the feeling that you were talking, like emotions and mind, and we're all these characters in this big cosmic theater, and we're all playing our role while we learn to play a different role at the same time. It's quite fascinating.
I have another question about addiction.
Yes.
Are you of the mindset that most, if not all, addictions arise because someone is not wanting to feel something, so they're looking at it as an escape from feeling?
So from my own lived experience, which is all I can speak from without, I'm not a neuroscientist nor a psychiatrist, but honestly,
I love how you give all the medical caveats too, just to clear all bases.
Well, because I was going to say something cool is however, a lot of those people that are in those positions have severed their head to heart
100%
and have no somatic intelligence of their own.
Yeah. And so they're working with false premises, by the way.
They're working with false premises. Yeah. So I'm saying that to say that from my own lived experience, I would say that's 100% for me. And it's 100%.
My question is 100%.
Absolutely.
Okay.
The answer is, what is the underlying current that is being felt or afraid to fully be felt and processed that is dictating the rest of the TFA, right? So the belief is, I can't feel that because if I feel that, I'm going to die. That's actually an unconscious belief. That's an inherent low-level, super dense belief for many people as to why they never explore BTFA. Because and I felt this before in my life, so I'm not going to bullshit anyone. I have had moments in my life where I was so afraid of looking at why I was addicted to porn. I felt like I was going to die. I really did. I was like, if I look at this and I really feel this for what it is, then there was a part of me knew, like my throat, my heart, my solar plexus, like my body knew. Yeah, it was like, I wouldn't feel my feelings because if I felt like I dipped my toe in, I would fall to the bottom of the ocean and never come out. And I was afraid of that. I was afraid of feeling the depth of my emotion. And I am not here to say that everybody should just run to an ayahuasca or run to a breathwork and jump in the deep end.
Well, this was going to be my next question, by the way.
Yeah.
Is that for like a lot of people, like can look at those things like porn, gambling, like sex addiction, alcohol, any drug. Yeah. And it's like very easy to look at that and be like, ooh, that's bad and wrong. And like, I would never do that. Or like, I've gotten past that. But this is what I question in the like healing space, right? Yeah. Is how many people have overcome that addiction and merely traded that addiction for whether it's like some type of plant medicine, ayahuasca, ketamine ceremonies, or even to some degree breath work, dude. Like, and I do Qigong every day, pretty consistently. And like, it's not that I like need to continually mentally, assessing this, but a question has come up for me is like, am I using Qigong to feel like more in my body and be more present?
That's a great inquiry.
Or am I using Qigong to escape a feeling that I just need to sit and feel? You see what I'm getting at? Yeah. Like, because
that's the philosopher's question. Yeah. That's a very mature, beautiful philosophic question.
Yeah. And I don't, it's a tough one. Cause like, have I used Qigong to escape before? Probably. I probably have before.
I've used work to escape before.
Dude, me too, 100%. Oh my gosh. My programming, and Stanton and I talk about this all the time. Yeah. Our programming, especially like coming from the West Point in the military, like.
Oh, that's right.
Dude,
yeah.
That is insane.
Shit's hard. Just work more.
Yeah, dude, just work more. Literally, like if shit is hard, like embrace the suck is a phrase that we would say and fucking dive in even more.
Yes.
It's like, oh, hold on a second there, buddy.
Yes.
Anyway. Yeah. So it's like, I don't know. I don't even know why I brought that up, but I think that's something interesting to talk about, I guess.
I believe that what you're sharing is really important for a multitude of reasons. But the first one that I was feeling when you were speaking was that it's never about the thing. I wholeheartedly believe this. When it comes to addiction, like Gabor Mate, leading addiction specialist, has a beautiful way he describes this. It's not mine, it's his. He says that addiction is a disconnection from self or other. And its opposite is connection. So when you're disconnected from self or others, you feel alone, you're in shame, and that drives addiction because it's inherently this super dense emotion. I mean, think about like what 25 hertz really is. 25 hertz is not a lot of vibration. Like you could probably even see that on a screen flicker if you tried. But 175 courage, pride, 200, if you go up the scale, those are things that can only really be felt. You can't see those anymore, right? Like love and enlightenment and these are beautiful things. So I believe that what he's saying is true, but just because he's giving people a model or a statement about addiction doesn't really give the solution. So if the solution is if the solution is encapsulated in the problem itself, and the problem is disconnection, which drives addiction from self or other, well, then everybody should just be running to connection, right? It should just be that easy. But connection is multifactorial because in order for me to be connected to you, there's many things that have to be embodied for me so that I don't project my stuff onto you. And I just actually witness you for who you are, or witness my wife for who she is, or my children for who they are. That's a really large bolus of work to be able to do and embody.
For you, does it all come back to the BTFA approach with it?
It all comes back to the BTFA, but I want to be clear, it's not just a mental lens.
Yeah.
It's a mental lens to start because first law of hermetics is mentalism. But when I go deeper down into it, it's like, okay, I mentally understand this, but now that I mentally understand it, how can I somatically be it? Like the be, do, have model in personal growth, right? It's not about having $1 million. It's about being Josh or being Alec that is in alignment with my BTFA of having the $1 million and doing the things that a person would do from the being state, which is inherently identity. Tony Robbins was turned on to this multitudes of, I think 3-4 decades ago, Tony Robbins was talking about identity. And so now it's a really hot term in the world, but I feel like I'm a really good steward of it because I'm not here to give people a false premise or bullshit about identity transformation. I think that identity transformation is a byproduct of doing the mental models and then having them live in your body, actually embodying them. If you just have the mental model, you're fucked. If you're not willing to do the physical work and the somatic work to actually embody the lessons, you could have all the mental models all day long, and it's not going to adjust addiction to your question. You were talking about addiction, right? I can't connect to self or others just because I know its opposite is addiction. That's just a mental construct. I can begin to understand my BTFA, but then really where it comes down into the work is actually understanding how to love thyself. Because when
that's what I was sitting here thinking the entire time. Like it all comes back to like, I don't want to interject. Go ahead.
No, that was it.
Yeah. For me, yes.
Loving
self-love.
thyself.
It is literally like a deep self-love because when you feel a deep sense of self-love, you experience, I'm not going to say we all 100% of the time experience no lack, right? But like I get financial fears and stuff like this. That absolutely comes up for me. Like as the sole provider for my family, like it happens, man.
Shit's real.
Shit's real. I know, dude.
Yeah.
Like we've talked about it before.
Real.
Anyway, that being said, that when you experience a deep self-love, you don't feel the need to pull from anything external to make yourself feel better temporarily as a quick dopamine hit or a quick oxytocin hit, whatever it is, right? You don't feel the need to reach for anything else because you can induce that feeling inside of you.
Dude, I'm going to share something. Fuck. Should I? Yeah, I'm going to share it. On the way to this interview, it's been a couple weeks since my wife and I have been intimate, physically intimate. And I shared with her, I'm about to go on Alec's podcast and I get to be in alignment with that which I say. So I want to practice this. And I shared my process of BTFA. I was like, you know what's coming up for me is this belief that you don't want to make love to me, that somehow the kids and everything else have gotten in the way. And I'm attached to this belief. And it's not your responsibility to heal me or to fix me. But I'd love for you to just poke a hole in this belief for me. Can you poke a hole in that belief for me? And that was it. It diffuses it because I was honest about it. And now what'll come from that is like a ceremony check-in with her, not through medicine, just through breathing and presence, where she'll probably share with me what's really going on for her. And about the beliefs that I created were not true at all. Now, how can that be a micro of a macro of exactly what we all experience in our life? I'm not the only married man with 2 kids that's like, hey, can we have more sex?
Yeah.
That's like a thing. That's a thing,
for
you know?
sure.
So I'm here to just give ownership to that and honesty to that, because that literally just happened on the way to this interview. And so my process was, I took her through exactly the thing. I have this belief, then it's connected to this thought. It makes me feel this way. And then I act out by sending you a passive aggressive message or being short with you or withholding my love. BTFA. It is that simple. But the real fucking work is when you're open and vulnerable to actually express it. Just because you know BTFA does not mean that you're going to be able to practice it without discomfort, without pain, or without false starts and stops. You know, when the sprinters get out of the blocks, and sometimes they slip, sometimes you're going to eat shit and everyone else around you is going to be like sprinting to the finish line. And you're going to be there going, damn, next time I'll tighten my block, you know, or give yourself grace, to which you spoke on earlier. Give yourself grace as we move through whatever model you choose. If my model works for you, cool. And if it doesn't and something else groks for you, do that.
I like it though, because for me, like getting to the root of the belief, it like nips it in the bud right there for you to approach your wife and be like, hey, here's the story. Especially if you have the self-awareness of the BTFA model or something like it. It's like you can get to the root of, okay, where is this thought? What is this really about? Oh, I have this belief that I'm dealing with right now where I feel like because my wife is doing X, Y, and Z, I feel like she doesn't want to make love to me. Therefore, I feel unworthy about myself. So you present that in full transparency to your wife. Hey, here's the story that I have in my head. What is the truth about it? And then she can pop that belief right there. And it's like, oh, that has nothing to do with me. Right. It has nothing to do with me at all.
Right. And you know what the fucking crazy part is this is what nonviolent communication, Imago, Harville Hendricks work, all these therapists are essentially getting people to the point where they will share from the I. Uh-huh. And when you share from the I, it takes off someone's defenses. Yeah. Like if you and I got in a fight and like, let's say I like hated your shoes, I'd be like, you know, I gotta be honest, man. Like I'm having this belief that your shoes are like totally ostentatious. And I just, you know, and then I'm like, it's making me feel insecure about my Vibrams that I'm wearing or my Paluvas that I'm wearing. Right. But if I just say that to you, you could be like, oh, well, that has nothing to do with me. This is just Josh's process. And you could say something like, well, you know, your shoes are cool and maybe there's a time and a place for those shoes, man. It's all good. And it would just be like a diffusion, right? But if I came to you and I said, your shoes are stupid, you'd be like, what the fuck? Right? So extrapolate that to relationships, right? And I know you and your wife have gone through levels of growth as well in this domain. So it's like us as men, we weren't taught because of what I talked about with the patriarchy and emotional epigenetics and that expression. We weren't always taught, nor ever taught, how to practice speaking from the I in conflict. Because when I speak from my process and my I, then I make it about me and I make it about what's coming up for me instead of pointing a finger at the other person and saying, you made me feel this way. You're doing this to me. All that does is put them on the defense. Then their prefrontal cortex, the blood flows out of it and it goes deeper into their amygdala. And then their reticular activating system only sees threat. And then you do that enough and that's what causes divorce. That's what breaks people up, is when you entrain the brain for conflict and protection instead of connection and safety. And it really fucks people up. And it makes me sad because like it doesn't have to be that way. So it's just about being a curious student of this work, I guess you could say, to where you held the end destination in mind of love and connection and joy, knowing that that won't be your totality of experience, but also that is the end result of like most of your days. If you can live 80-20 or 70-30 in mostly joy and peace and harmony, and then life is going to bring you 20 to 30% of challenge and constraint, well, that's inherently the Pareto principle in lived form, right? Which is like a scientific law, but it's also quite spiritual as well. So what I'm saying is it doesn't have to be so hard. We can entrain ourselves to where we can be on the side of stacking the environment in our favor because we've done the work to relate.
Most healthcare today operates on an outdated mechanistic model, treating the body like a battlefield rather than a self-healing system. You wait months for an appointment only to receive a rush diagnosis that labels you rather than truly understanding your unique health. Even in holistic health, many practitioners rely on endless lab tests and supplement protocols, addressing symptoms instead of the root cause. And the result? Another prescription or supplement regimen that merely suppresses or masks symptoms rather than facilitating true healing, whether the imbalance was physical, emotional, energetic, or a mix of all three. And that's why Dr. Tom Cowan co-founded the New Biology Clinic, to offer something radically different. As one of the most respected natural health doctors in the world, Dr. Cowan has spent decades challenging conventional medicine and advancing a deeper understanding of human biology, water, and natural health. His work isn't just about rejecting the mainstream, it's about offering a more truthful, biologically coherent approach for healing. The New Biology Clinic recognizes that health isn't about fighting disease, it's about restoring balance. You're not a diagnosis, you're an individual with a unique story, and healing should honor that. With virtual consultations available worldwide, the clinic offers a flat-rate monthly membership that gives you direct access to practitioners who take the time to actually listen. Members also get exclusive health live streams, a resource library, and live sessions covering everything from biofield tuning and breathwork to movement and meditation, all designed to support whole body healing. And if you're not ready for a membership, you can book a one-time appointment, sign up for an enrichment-only membership for the healing modalities alone, or schedule a free connection session with one of the care team members to see how the New Biology Clinic can help in your specific situation. This isn't about keeping you dependent on doctors. It's about making you sovereign over your health. Head to newbiologyclinic.com and use code THEWAYFORWARD, and that's spelled The Way, F-O-R-W-A-R-D, for $50 off account activation, or just head to the show notes for more info. If you're a member of The Way Forward, email hello@thewayforward.com for $150 off. Your body already knows how to heal, and New Biology Clinic helps you remember. Exactly, because I can look back at my very challenging childhood experiences and be incredibly grateful for them and look at them as I have, mostly, again, I've never fully completed the work, if you will. There's always more stuff to unpack and things like this. It's a never ending journey. And I'm okay with that, but I can look to those things and be incredibly grateful for them because it's made me the man that I am today. And I can be proud of the man that I am today. And so I know that when challenges come, when you're in it, dude, I'm not going to sit there and be every single time, especially if it's an incredibly challenging situation that I'm so grateful for this. When I'm in it, sometimes I'm fuck this, dude. I want to quit everything.
Yeah, that's honest.
Yeah, that's honest. And it's also parts work. I have to be with the part of me that's fuck this, dude. Fuck this. But at the same time, I always know deep down inside, or after I really feel that fuck this feeling that I'm feeling right then, I can move past that and move into a little bit of a lighter feeling, a little bit more of a lighter feeling, a little bit more of a lighter feeling. And then I move past it, I integrate it. I'm damn, I'm really grateful for that experience. I'll give you one. This is no bullshit. Remember when you came in, you're how you been, man? I'm up until a few days ago, I was not doing great, and then I feel better now. So here's an example. So this is pretty vulnerable. This is the inside baseball, if you will, of The Way Forward. So we integrated a new email marketing software over the November, December timeframe, right? And it was only supposed to take a couple weeks. We weren't able to send any emails about our membership platform, which is the primary means to sustain our podcast. Yes, we get advertiser money, but I turn down a lot of advertisers because if I don't believe in their product or their brand, I'm going to say no. That's just, I'm not going to sell out, So all that to say, this podcast is largely sustained by member support through memberships to The Way Forward. And I haven't been clear about that, and I'll get to that point. But we get on our ops call, first one after 2 weeks of being off for Christmas and New Year's, and we are looking at our budget and things like this. And my COO says to me, "We have critically low funds," and I'm "Oh my God." And I go, look, it doesn't look critically low. And she's "Yeah, but we still have these 3 checks coming out." And I'm "Oh my God." And we go back and look, and it's because we weren't able to send these emails and things like this. And we were waiting for the software to integrate when it was only supposed to take a couple weeks. It took a couple months. I was "Oh my God, dude." And I just started wrestling in my head, like, how am I going to provide for my family? Like, I might really have to like shut down this podcast. Like, what, like, oh my goodness. And I was feeling that part of me, and I had to feel that part of me that was afraid. And then on the back end of that, I realized the reason this is coming back into my awareness for me, I can't speak to the other members on my team. They have to look at that themselves. But why is this coming up for me? Because there's still parts of me that feels unworthy to receive. There's still pieces of me that feels unworthy to receive, which is why I'm hitting this very, pressing and very real financial situation that I'm dealing with right now. I feel unworthy to receive. Okay. So I started like going about looking at solutions, and I posted on my Instagram only close friends story, like, hey, here's the no BS situation that I'm dealing with right now. Here's a draft message that I want to say to my audience. What do you guys think? And a lot of people gave me feedback, and they're like, dude, I didn't realize you were dealing with this situation. I was like, I'm being honest, and I want to be more honest with my supporters and listeners. This podcast has 140,000 downloads a month, and I need to be more honest with them, but I don't want to come across as alarmist or defeatist or bitchy, but I need to be honest.
Yeah.
And this was a process of like me going through, okay, I feel unworthy to receive, so I'm scared to ask for help or ask for direct support from many of the people who say your podcast has changed my life, dude. And so what I've done is gone through a process now of just asking my audience for direct support. And it's helped out tremendously, man. It's helped out tremendously. So that was just like a very recent example of I went through a very challenging situation, like literally was talking with my wife about shutting this podcast down completely, like that level of financial scare, let's say. And then that led to me realizing why it was coming into my awareness. And it led to me asking for help and being vulnerable with my audience, and also speaking more directly to, hey, this podcast is primarily sustained by memberships to thewayforward.com.
Yeah.
And I would not have done any of that. I would not have integrated more of that unworthiness that I had felt had I not gone through this experience. When it first happened, when I was in it for that first day, was I thinking any of this stuff? No, dude, not at all. I was in full panic mode. That's how I felt. And I needed to feel that part of me that felt panicked. And now I can look in the back into that, like in every single case, whether it's coming internally from me or whether like some angel comes in and says, hey, I'm here to help you out. God has always provided for me. And I know that piece of me too. I'm sorry, I'm kind of rambling on this, but you see what I'm saying.
I was seeing pictures. I was seeing all kinds of things when you were talking about. Yeah. So the A is like, okay, we're at a almost negative balance, or the action.
Yeah, do BTFA.
The action is, hey, we're getting close to zero.
Yeah.
This is the fruit, right? The feeling is, oh my God, how am I going to provide? A feeling of fear. The thought is, what do I have to do in order to not feel this way? Or the thought might be, what do I have to do to make sure things are okay, right? But then the belief of curiosity would be like, okay, what would one believe about themselves on an unconscious level that would bring forth this situation? Or it's because it's not always just that one question. Everybody loves to go to that question. It's not always that question. That could be it if it's really rampant. Or it could be, okay, doing the work in higher self and meditating, have some kind of intuitive check-in practice of like meditation, prayer, breathwork, something where you can sit in your stillness or process your TFA before you get to the B. Because remember, we work it in reverse. It's not about the BTFA. It never goes believe first. You're fucked if you try to go believe first, because you're just going to get into a head story. You have to go in reverse. The action, then the feeling, then the thought, then the belief. That's the way that you work it, is in reverse, which I find is crazy because everything we know that's been taught to us has been like learned in reverse. So then the other question would be, what higher self would God bring in this unique constraint for me to learn about how lovable and amazing I am?
Yeah.
And what from my past is potentially a hook or an unconscious layer of being physically abused, or having a mom leave, or having to feel like if it's up to happen, I have to do it alone. Being a lone wolf, being somebody that had to fight and scratch for everything and had to like do his own research and become somebody that could understand virology in a whole new different way and fucking create everything from the ground up with no help. Definitely is seeking identity transformation, that one would then such be put in a position where one would be forced to ask for help. to prove to the unconscious that these old stories that created the old B, the old identity, are no longer valid. They no longer have charge anymore, because one is forced to ask the community to which is being provided massive value to, that is super happy, I'm sure, to kick down $5, $10, $20, $100, that would disprove this old identity. And so that's why I hope that was clear enough.
Dude,
I wanted to say one more thing.
You just spoke to it so well.
That's inherently
what I feel. The other conditioned belief in there was the belief that I'm a failure if I can't adequately provide for my family, was the deepest, like, fear-based belief that was there.
Well, I think if most men are honest, they would definitely feel that way if bank account was at zero, or absolutely. And you'd be a fucking liar if you said you didn't feel that. But I want to be clear, like, the feeling is a temporary thing. Feelings are like leaves in a driveway. Dr. Jill Taylor, I love this, dude. When I found this scientific fact, it ripped my hair off. Dr. Jill Taylor, she was a neuroscientist, and her brother unfortunately developed schizophrenia, which is really sad. And she wanted to heal her brother. So she went deep into the neurology of, like, what creates this. And she found in her work, when they sense the afferent, the efferent, putting the leads on, doing the PET scans, all the stuff they do in neurology, she found that actually when measured, an emotion that's not blocked only lasts 90 seconds. And it was scientifically validated that our emotion, our energy in motion, takes 90 seconds to move through. A lot of people in Landmark or other programs, they'll be like, 7 seconds. You know, Hal Elrod's like 5 minutes. It's like, well, I wish we could just put one model on emotion, but emotion is a corollary to the stimulus and the amalgamation of the events that have happened to bring somebody to that point. So it's not always just that it's 90 seconds. Why I'm saying that from a lens of mental is that you're a human being you're 33, 34?
33.
You have 33 years of time encoding chapters that have brought you to be able to lead a movement, and what served you for so long created all of this. What a fucking blessing that was.
Huge blessing.
It brings up emotion to me just to think about it, right? Because I share that with you. It's the same thing with me and wellness and wisdom. It's like everybody that I connect to and everybody that I feel who's watching or listening, they're either going through or they've gone through what I've gone through. And that is that we feel like we have to do this shit all alone. We've been through trauma, AKA stuck energy. We've had physical abuse, sexual abuse, neglect, hormone dysregulation. We've had moms that have issues with their emotional health, whatever, fill in the blank. There's a myriad of things that have happened for us. And we're all just going, God, is this it? Like, how do we receive support? Like, I can't do this alone. And I think that act of you reaching out to your community, or even me sharing just being honest about my marriage today, it's like all these things are actually the medicine that is most potent. It's like when we eat it, we can, when you ever eat a pill, you can just get that bitter pill taste. It's like this bitter medicine that is so good for us just to be fucking honest about the truth of what is here. And in that honesty, the old belief structures that created the false identity, they have to go away.
Boom.
It's inevitable.
So well said,
It's
dude.
inevitable.
So
they
well
can't
said.
withstand, because there's no more fuel substrate. They can't be fed anymore. You reached out to your community. You were honest. You received support. The old identity that you have to do it alone as a lone wolf, and if it's only going to happen, you have to do it by you fighting and clinging, can't live anymore, because the evidence that is in front of oneself speaks differently to it. So it was in that act of you actually practicing the be, do, have that gives you the have, because you were just being it. That's fucking transformation. Oh, that's the most exciting thing about our world that we're in, is that this is even possible. But in the moment, it doesn't feel like that. In the moment, it feels like, fuck, this is so hard. I feel like I'm going to die. My ego, my family, my life, my money. But what happens is something really beautiful at the end of it.
Amen, man. Oh, that was so well said. Yeah, that was great, dude.
So I commend your courage to do that.
Thank you, man.
I've had moments like that too, where I've thought about like asking the audience, because I deleted all of our sponsors as well. I used to have tons of sponsors.
Good for you.
And I cut out multiple thousands of dollars a month, because I was like, I just don't want to hawk supplements on a podcast. I get it that it keeps the lights on and pays the bills. I'm going to be an affiliate and a storyteller, and I'm also going to be a coach and a person that leads a movement that allows people to remember who they are. And I just trust that God will bring forth massive abundance from that, because I'm doing my own identity work and being honest and public about what's real instead of trying to front. When you're around people that front,
Yes.
And you can kind of feel that like what they're sharing isn't really real in their life.
Yep.
It's like the worst feeling. Cause when I'm around those people, it's like, man, I want to connect with you, but I can't connect with you.
There's a barrier.
Yeah. Like what's here isn't being talked about, like tell me what's really going on for you. That's why my favorite question for my friends is like, how's your heart, man? How's your heart? I like doing that.
I like that too.
Yeah.
One other thing that I'd like to add related to all that we talked about, and you touched on this with the 7th generation principle, is in my experience, for example, with this last like financial scare thing that I had. I mean, for me, the pressure of having to provide for my wife and kids, that's like something that every man experiences. So that's like not uncharacteristic, but I would say it's exceptional for entrepreneurs like us. Like it absolutely is. Cause like it's different when you are just in a typical job. But then nowadays, like with everything being replaced by AI, there's a lot of people who are like, oh shit, dude, like Jim, 2 cubicles over, he was just replaced. Like, so that's one thing. But then the pressure of also having a team to provide for too. Like you can look at that as a blessing and a curse. And I'm saying all that because when you have people to provide for, it is imperative, not from a pressure, not from a shamey, but it is imperative that you do self-work. It is imperative because let's like take, for example, your wife and kids. You set the tone of the household. You do. Am I perfect in that? No, I'm absolutely not. But I know that. And sometimes it can cripple me into like, oh, I'm not good enough, blah, blah, blah. But then that only perpetuates the issue. It is imperative that we do the work internally. It is imperative that we face our own stuff. It is imperative that we attempt to get to the root of these things so that our kids are better off for it. So that the people that we're charged with, not that we have any expectations to have to provide for other people or anything like that. But if you have a team, you have a business, if you're the face of the business runs on you and it's a mirror of your own internal stuff.
Yeah.
That's what comes up. So it's imperative that we do that work. And I want to talk more specifically though about emotional epigenetics because we danced around a little bit, but I think like to define what it is and really get into it, I think would be really helpful too.
So I looked at Bruce Lipton's work for a long time. I looked at Dispenza and I was like, what is missing here? It was this scientific conversation that I love. I think science and spirit are welcomed at the table. But I actually did this massive search about 1.5 years ago. And I was like, okay, well, what is it exactly that turns off and on our DNA, which is fixed from birth? You can't actually change DNA, but you can epigenetically think of the DNA as a piano set of keys. And then our epigenetics is how the notes are played. So our DNA is fixed, but then epigenetics turns off and on things like cofactors of methylation, stress or trauma responses, things like that. So I just kept searching for the truth on it. And I was like, what is the real truth about why things get passed on? What exactly is that? And there wasn't a term for it from an epigenetic perspective. So I will say that I created the term. I bought emotionalepigenetics.com because I found that it was 3 things. It was 3 actual things that carry on energy patterns. And it's unconscious beliefs, which we've gone way deep into. These unconscious beliefs are installed at least 7 generations back. And I can give you some scientific studies for your show notes that show scientifically they can track it 7 generations back in mice.
I've talked about that study on this.
In mice specifically,
episode, yeah.
Which maybe if you let me, I'll bring it up, the cherry blossom study just real quick.
Yeah, please do.
Okay, so 2014. So let me give you the definition, right? Emotional epigenetics, I believe, is a process where science and spirit are producing an end result of identity transformation through the understanding of what happened through the causation of emotional patterns, unconscious beliefs, and environmental expression. So those 3 cofactors, those 3 lanes inherently are emotional epigenetics. The energy in motion, emotion, that is epigenetically expressed are done through those 3 pathways. Now, obviously, that's a simplistic view. So that's the definition. Below those 3 pathways are a lot of inputs and outputs. I want to be clear. I'm synthesizing an elegant model to explain how energy in motion transfers through the epigenome and turns off and on the DNA through those 3 lanes. But I want to be totally clear, like it is not a simple thing. It is a simple model to understand, but it's not a simple thing. It's not an easy thing to embody. So the way I could say this best would be in 2014, there was a scientific study, and it was the cherry blossom study. It's a very famous study. And the somatic crew that you talked about loves this study, which I love it too. So they would shock a male rodent, and then 2 generations down, when the male rodent was shocked, he would be smelling cherry blossoms. And they would do this enough to where whenever the male rodent would smell the cherry blossom, he would exhibit a stress response. Well, they measured the neural tree in 2 years, 2 generations down, and found that the offspring, when they smelled cherry blossoms, would have the same exact symptomology of stress response. It was the same thing exhibited by their neural tree. So one would have to say, how does that happen? Well, it happens because of this thing called non-coding RNA. And then there's also these methylation pathways. There's one methylation pathway specifically. It's called the FKBP5. And FKBP5 inherently addresses how well you methylate. So people that have been through traumatic things, that one epigenetic key that turns off and on the piano key can mess a lot with methylation. And methylation, as you know, is like basically your furnace. So the NAD is the spark plug. And then after NAD, the actual fireplace is methylation. Methylation is a big fireplace. So if your fire isn't burning, you're going to be less stress adaptive. You're not going to be able to deal with stress. Now they can track that back multiple generations. So that is the actual imprint or the emotional imprint, these emotional patterns that I'm talking about. When it comes to the unconscious beliefs, we went into that. But now I want to talk about environment. Because if there's 3 lanes of emotional epigenetics, the third and most important lane is the soup that we're all swimming in here, right? The environment of social media and its distractibility, the EMFs, the toxins in the air, chemtrails, poisons in our food, lack of nutrients in our food. Like this environmental expression also turns off and on through epigenetics, those DNA piano keys. And so it's not that one has to become a master of all these domains. It's that one just commits to be in mastery of mastering these domains. It's not like the end result is that we ever get fully mastered. I don't know anybody that is a full master. Maybe they live in a cave in India or something. They exist, but I've never personally met someone that's mastered all parts of what I'm describing.
I'm more impressed by a person who is like a dad of 4 kids who is able to master themselves than a dude that's in a cave in India.
You really know who you are when you have children.
Yeah.
And speaking of emotional epigenetics, how energy is passed on, I think what the Native Americans were really hinting at is the truth that you and I know as fathers. And that is, don't we just want to have a life for our children that has less of the stressors we experienced?
Yeah.
Isn't that the greatest fucking gift that we could ever give to our sons and daughters? I think about my daughter, Naya. I'm like, wow, I really will do everything in my power to make sure that she's embodied and confident and loved, so that she'll never attract a man like I was in my 20s. Ever. I'll do everything I can through how I'm serving the world so that my son never falls into the clutches of addiction like I did, because he'll be loved and he'll be in mastery process of his 5 domains he'll understand emotional epigenetics. So that's the whole thing with understanding something is like, even if you think about it, to understand, it's like you can support it. It doesn't mean that you always have to live it 24/7, 365. It just means that you're a student of it. So if you understand something, you're a student of it. And in your process of understanding, you eventually embody it more and more and more as you give grace to yourself for it. So emotional epigenetics is not a panacea. It's just a new packaging. It's just a new model to give credit to all the masters that have taught us what I believe the new era is in need of. And that is to understand how we identify these burdens and how we let them go. Because the last thing I'll share, man, is like, none of us are broken. We feel broken at times. We've been taught by broken people that we are inherently broken, but we're not broken. We're just bioenergetically burdened. And these bioenergetic burdens, through those 3 ways that I described, those bioenergetic burdens can just be lovingly removed on a continuous basis so that we are less burdened, such that we can then be more free and not be so burdened. That's really at the core of it all. It's not about trying to go back in time and find out what happened through your genealogy so that you can mentally understand it. It's just, can we have a tool set that allows us to remove our burdens? That's what this is all about. And then when we have less burdens, we can show up and enjoy our lives and be with our children and have expansive time like you and I are having here. So it's less of a mental model, even though it is mental. It's more of a spiritual and somatic and scientific understanding that God, we are here to thrive. And man, it's so challenging in this current construct. It's
Amen.
very challenging.
Yeah, totally. For the environment that we've all constructed for ourselves collectively and individually. Yeah, it can be, man. But it also presents a massive amount of catalysts that are just possibilities for growth, like in the best way, which is something I've reflected on when it comes to kids. So there's two ways to look at this. It's funny how my brain works. Like I'm like, oh, but what about that caveat? So going through the trauma that I went through, I'm very grateful for it. And I'm now putting myself in a position where I don't want to create as many traumatic experiences like that for my kids. Like I did the work to transmute a lot of that stuff so that my kids don't have to go through the same thing that I went through. By limiting the amount of traumatic experiences that they go through, is that A, in and of itself a trauma? And B, is that limiting their possibilities for growth?
You know
what I mean?
I have an answer.
Okay, yeah, I want to.
Because I think about, dude, I've had that exact same thought. And you know what I come to? That's up to God. That's God's business. Our buddy Luke Story tells me this. This is his phrase. He said, there's 3 types of businesses in the world. There's my business, there's your business, and then there's God's business. So I'll give him credit for that statement because that was a profound statement when he told me that. And the answer to your question is that it's God's business. It is my business, which I hold with sacred, loving care, that I do everything in my power to limit the traumatization of my children. I don't give a flying fuck if they get to wherever they want to be from love and joy. That's my preference for them. God is going to bring them unique challenges because I think part of this human thing is to suffer and create meaning. Otherwise, God wouldn't design it this way because inherently in all metaphysical teachings, there is some formulation of suffering and the meaning we make from it. So no, I don't want to rob my kids of their suffering. A good example would be like when our children fall down, we allow them to come to us. We don't just run and go pick them up. Unless it's super severe, then I would grab them, right? Yeah. So just little things like that are ways in which I don't rob them of their suffering. Or even we have a phrase in our house. I don't know, you might like this. For all the parents listening, when your child says, I can't do it, say, we don't say that in this family. We say, I'm learning. It's just so much lighter. It's so much more easeful. And then Naya will say, I can't do it. And I'll be like, Nova, what do we say when we can't figure something out? I say, I'm learning. And he'll say, I'm learning, Daddy. And I'm like, oh, it makes my heart so happy. Because these are the conversations. It's not to diss my parents. It's not to belittle my parents. These are the conversations that were not present when I was young. There was no talk of linguistic programming. There was no talk of holistic health. There was no talk of the things that truly matter. And I love my parents for the consciousness they had, but it's also about being honest and being truthful about what has transpired. Without judgment, without blame, but full brutal honesty that your best actually was not good enough. And that's okay to be honest about. And it was good enough for what you could give at that time.
Right.
But the trauma and or the vacuum that was created from that, I choose to not give to my children. I choose to not give to my children because damn, I see it everywhere, dude. I don't just see it with my kids. I see it everywhere. The passing down of these burdens. Sometimes I can not just feel it in my family, but I can feel it in the world. It's like stifling. It's like overwhelming. So I can allow myself to feel it right now, but it's not something I usually go into the depths of. But yeah, it brings up grief and sadness because if I'm not conscious in those moments, I'll say, why God, why? Why God do you want this to occur? Why God do you need to experience yourself in these unlimited ways with rape and murder and torture? Why God, why do you allow this emotional epigenetic transfer to continue? Why do you allow this to continue? And the answer I've always gotten back in every ceremony is, you don't get to know. And so can I just be at peace with that answer? Of that it's not my job to know, that's God's business. It's God's business to know the answers to these questions. But you better believe that my pain or my sadness or my grief can inform its opposite, can be a fuel source for its opposite. And I can see the transfer of these terrible things and the way that parents are so disconnected and like being at the park and watching parents on their phone the entire time and their kids screaming, Daddy, Daddy, Daddy. Yeah, it's just really the amount of sadness and grief is something that I go into when I feel like it's the right place and the right time, like what we're having. But it's not something I would tell to the checker at HEB.
Yeah. how's your heart, brother? Like as you're checking out. It's like, dude, I just want to go home.
Right.
You had a process that you shared on another podcast that you appeared on. I don't remember what it was, but it was the emotional inventory process where you like write down 10 things. Can you share that too? Because I just found that to be really cool as well, to dissolve these, emotional things that we're dealing with.
Yeah, that was like, what's interesting is I've been doing that for 4 years, 3 to 4 years. And it was before I started to really grok and embody the BTFA. And it was this early stage that actually now I plug it into the blueprint and I plug it into the BTFA right at the actual thought portion of it. So all you do is you just sit and think. And obviously when you think, it's connected to your feelings as well. But you take a nice deep breath, you go out in nature, you turn off your phone, and you just do 5 to 10 circular breaths. And you just ask yourself out loud or in your own head, okay, what is causing me the most stress in my life right now? So it's inherently the T section of the BTFA. And then you would just write them down. Don't like think too deeply about them. Just whatever's coming up for you. It's like, okay, finance, health, my physicality, this person at work, my wife, my husband, my kids, whatever it is. Just list them all out and then take a breath and then circle the one that is causing you the absolute most pain, where if you could make it go away, it would move the needle the most. And then on the other side of the page, so you've drawn a line down on the page, you put those 10 constraints on the left. On the right side of the page, you put down 10 things that you're truly grateful for. And when I've done this, and when other people have reported back, that it's been work to list out the 10, which is so interesting when you look at the negativity bias in the human brain. So then list out 10. And then this is the most important part. You take a deep breath and you circle the one that really brings you the most joy. Don't worry, you're not picking favorites. It's not like you love your wife more than your kids, or just pick the one that's causing you the most joy. Typically, it's going to be like a spouse, a mother, a father, or children, typically, because you just love them. And then this is where the bridge to action really makes the most impact. The most important thing you do after this quick emotional inventory is you take a deep breath and you go, okay, who can I reach out to that I respect, that can hold space for me, that I can actually share this with? And then you call them and you tell them, hey, I just did this inventory and I realized that the thing in my life that's causing me the most pain is that I really want to leave this job that's sucking my soul. And, I love myself enough, and even more, I'm so grateful for my wife or my children that I owe it to myself and them to be my authentic self, and just let the person reflect that back to you. Now, obviously, this is important. You have to choose a mentor or a friend or a coach or someone that actually cares about you. The worst thing you could ever do is to not feel your intuition and share this vulnerability with someone and have them go, well, that's stupid. How are you going to pay your bills? Wrong person to share it with. And if you do find that person, then just move on to the next person. And
you just need someone that can hold space.
Someone that can hold space for you. And then this is the really powerful thing where like your thought becomes inspired action. Then you say, all right, I'm going to take one step towards removing this constraint, whatever that step is, whether it's researching what you do want to do, going through an abundance map that I've created in the Life Method, being in the Way Forward community and sharing it out loud, declaring it, whatever it is, just take one small step. Because this is the thing is that, the Buddha said this in one of his teachings. He said that all wishes begin with the tip of one finger. So one just takes one step and the wish can be fulfilled. The wish is fulfilled when you just take one step. It's already the wish being fulfilled. It's already the thing being fulfilled. And so then you go and you execute that. And then you ask the person, hey, can I call you in a week? And can you hold me accountable to this? It's not your responsibility, but can you hold me accountable to this? And I think just that quick process, it's like 3 minutes of breathing, 5 to 7 minutes of inventory, and then a quick gut check moment of like, okay, what's causing me the most pain and what do I really love most in my life? Then you reach out to somebody, you send them a little voicemail. I like doing voice notes. You voice note somebody. I know you don't like that because you have this thing.
No, I just don't like it when it's over like 4.5 to 5 minutes. Unless it's coming from like a really close friend,
yes.
But then it takes me like 2 weeks to get through it. And I'm just like, hey dude, you sent me like the other day and I love him and he was wanting to help me out and he's one of my best friends. Dr. Stan sent me a 20-minute voice message and it took me a few days to get through it, but he was doing it to help me out. So it's like, he's taking the time to help me out, dude.
Hit it at 2x speed.
iPhone doesn't allow that.
No, it does. You got to hold it and then it'll come up 2x.
Oh, okay.
That's a hack.
Okay.
So that's it. So that it may seem like when I'm sharing this, that somebody in the audience might be like, well, that sounds cool or duh, but it's like, are you actually doing it? That's where the rubber meets the road is like, are you actually doing it? I guarantee I know I don't like to speak in absolutes or like have reductionistic blinders on all the time, but I will guarantee this, that if you just commit to doing that one exercise, and maybe this is the entire thing you get from this podcast is just doing that one thing will produce such massive fruit through the act of you taking inventory, through the act of honesty is essentially what it is. It's really just it's emotional inventory, but it's just like, hey, can I sit and be honest with myself? That's really what it is. And then the act of vulnerability of like reaching out to a homie, like reaching out to a friend and saying, hey man, this is important enough for me in my life to connect with a friend on. You know how much of a gift it is to your friend?
And again, just naming it.
Just naming it.
Yep.
What I'm saying is, do you know how awesome that if a friend hit me up and said, can I share my inventory with you? I'd be like, first of all, I'm so honored that you want to share this inventory.
You trust me enough as a homie to like hold this for you.
Second of all, what is it? Because I just want to listen and I don't want to reflect back. If I was the friend listening, I would say, well, how can I support you with that? What do you need? How can I be in your life for that? So that one practice, and it's baked into the blueprint as well. Like there's so many, the blueprint, not to shamelessly plug the blueprint.
No, please do.
But I'm going to plug it because...
What is the blueprint?
So the blueprint is 10 days of teaching of everything that we've talked about for free.
Epic.
For free. It's 33 videos. Don't ask me why the number 33 happened.
Because I'm 33 years old.
Well, there you go. But it's 33 videos and it's 10 days of just really beautiful coaching with a trained AI that I've poured a lot of my heart and soul into. So it has all of our curriculum. It's not a public AI, so it's not like your data is going to be on GPT or anything. There are some people doing GPTs, but just so you guys know, anything you put in a GPT can and will be used against you. Okay. This is not like that. This is done through a Pickaxe, which is a private AI. So anyways, I've built this all because I'm like, what did I want when I was really suffering? Like, what did I want when I was super struggling, maybe at the beginning or somewhere in the middle of my journey when I felt alone? I would have wanted this. So I literally built what I would have wanted when I was at the deepest points of my struggle, like a friend who's
a good friend, man.
Yeah, like a friend who's not here to fix you.
Yeah.
Just a mentor and a friend who's here to guide you, not because they have it all figured out, but because they're just a little further down the path than you. And why not have mentorship in your life for free? And yes, later on this year, we'll definitely have more expansive paid programs. But my promise to everyone is that they can go through this blueprint, which includes a map for authentic abundance, where you learn about your values, your purpose, your gifts, how you're going to give them in the world. What are your values of identity? We go very deep into identity transformation in the blueprint. And all of this is for free. It's literally the opposite of what most marketers do, where they're like, I'll sell somebody this quick little thing and then they'll buy this other big thing. I'm like, just do the blueprint forever. It's got breathing, it's got AI, it's got models, it's got curriculum, and it'll always be there. And I will never charge for it ever, because it's my gift for everything that I've ever received from all my mentors and all the things that I've learned on my podcast. How could I charge for something like that? Yes, I will charge for my time and at one-on-ones and groups later. But right now it's just at liberatedlife.com. So everybody can get that for free.
Epic. That's awesome, man. And you can find all that in the show notes as always. Man, is there anything else you want to cover?
Dude, I just want to say how grateful I am for what you've been through and how you have navigated your life. You're a really mature soul. When I was 33, I was deep in addiction and I was still playing stupid games and winning stupid prizes. And so I just want to speak to your heart. And if your ego likes it too, that's fine. But I just want to speak to your heart, like your ability at this age to be able to lead in the way that you do and hold a space like you do. It's a testament. It's a testament to how someone responds to stuck energy and motion, and how we can all really be of service to others, not because we're here to fix them, but because you can assuage some people's pain or potentially shorten their pain curve as an ally or as a friend. So that's what I feel from you. It took me longer to embody these types of things in my life. And I think that when it comes to spiritual development and personal growth, if you will, that there's no exact timeline of how it should look, right? Whether you're 75 listening to this or 17, you can develop levels of mastery that will surpass your peers that has no relation to your age whatsoever.
And there's layers, man.
There's layers. I just want to acknowledge that in you.
I appreciate that, man. It really means a lot. And like, I acknowledge that I'm fallible, and like, I still, like, the financial experience that I just had literally like last week, dude, like stuff happens. And at the same time, like, I've had such a tremendous amount of life experience. Like, I know that when I've told my story to other people, they're like, dude, that literally sounds like a movie. Like, it sounds that crazy. Like, it's a movie.
I remember
plot.
we were sitting at Luke's house and you were telling your story. I was just like, he did what?
I know. And I felt bad because I took away from your time to share, because you're, I felt bad, man. But
well, this is the blend of like being a communicator is like my wife. I get to learn to pause with my wife. Yeah. And also my default is just to kind of gab. Yeah. So I like it. It's more fun, but then having the nuance on when to let other people share. And it's an ongoing journey, man. I think I really do mean that. I'm not here to stoke your ego. It's like, you know, when two people are like walking in the forest and they're finding their way to the top of the mountain and they just like look over at each other. It would be like one of those moments with you where I would just look over and be like, good job, man. And you look at me and be like, I see you. You know, I do see you, bro. Catching each other on different trails, but we're all heading in the same direction.
I like that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, bro.
You're welcome.
Thank you for being here, man. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.